Welcome to Shine Me a Light podcasts. In this series, Last 27 Years, we go through the last 27 years in the life of one class of 95 Sydney Girls High School student, and this episode is Emma Kerr. So pretty much, how have you been? You okay?
Yeah, good.
In your life? Because my life's an absolute shite show right now.
Looks like it. Poor thing.
Like happening around me just is, yeah, but I'm sort of trying just to stay centered.
Yeah.
So because I asked this is the first thing I asked though, is because did you do HSC in 95?
Yes.
Because I think because a lot of people didn't.
Oh, really?
A lot of people, yeah, I know. And like everyone who was there in 95 is like, really? Like there were people who were like gone, you know, you're almost so focused on the HSC. It was like I won't mention, like somebody who plays piano very well was at the conservatorium. You know what I mean? And I'd had my meltdown and left, and there were some other people who'd had, you know, people had left for various reasons. So it wasn't the whole cohort. So you did.
That's interesting, because you'd expect everyone to just go the whole way, wouldn't you?
Yeah. And I think that was the plan. Like, I don't think there was any, you know, No, in 1990, there was no plan for anyone to be leaving before the end, especially not at that school. So what happened for you after 95?
I went straight to uni, actually. I went straight into nursing degree.
The uni plan, which was...
Yeah.
Yeah. I had that plan you know, when I was age 5. Parents are like, you go to uni.
Yeah, it was funny. I always tell this story, but I was, I knew I wanted to be in the health sciences in some respect.
Yep.
And I think I wanted to do physio or diversional therapy or occupational therapy. And I went and saw Mr. Morris. And Mr. Morris was like, Emma, you are not going to get those grades. You should just do nursing.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, my God. So, yeah, and he said, you know, later on you can get prereqs and go into physio if you want to go into physio. But I got into nursing and just loved it, and so stayed.
All I remember about him was the recommendation of engineering. Like, everybody should become an engineer. You'd go to him with like your interests or whatever, and he'd be like, yeah. Engineering is what I would recommend for you. You're like, but I'm into music. Yeah, engineering.
That's right, I remember. And I was talking to Katie Finney now, and she's like, I can't believe he said just do nursing. And I was like, yeah, but it was actually the best advice. Like I'm really proud of being a nurse. I've had a really good career. I've made so many friends. You can do so much with it. And it actually was the best advice that someone could give me at the time. It's like,
and it's great that he gave you that advice. Like, you're probably the only person he gave, you know, something different to. Like everyone else got the same.
You're not going to get the grades, Emma. You just do nursing. I remember that accent, that Canadian accent, wasn't it?
I know. I know you'll never forget that voice. If I heard it today, my head would turn. I'm just oh my God. How old I wonder he would be now. Like, I know it's completely off topic, but he was probably like 40s. I know,
he's probably our age. We just thought he was really old.
Then, yeah. So he'd probably be like 70s now.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right. So you did nursing and you loved it, which is really cool. Like, I mean, like not everybody loves what they go and do straight away, you know, like.
Yeah.
So that's a really cool thing.
No, I feel really lucky in that respect. I just think it was just my niche, you know. I just sort of got into it and just loved it.
Very, very cool.
So I've done lots of different jobs and worked in not lots of different companies, but I've probably, 3 companies I've worked in. I was at RPA, so I went to, once I finished uni, they do a 6-month sort of new grad program.
Yep.
So I also went to RPA. Yeah. So it's a more support for a new graduate nurse. And you do some rotations. So I did neurosurgery and geriatrics, which I wasn't very happy about at Balmain Hospital, but I wanted to go back to neurosurgery, but they didn't have any positions at the time. And the grad coordinator said to me, if you like being busy, because I always thought I was going to be a surgical nurse. I wanted to be really busy and fast. And she said to me, go to haematology. So I went to haematology because I was like, I don't want to be a medical nurse. I want to do all the exciting surgical stuff, you know. And she's like, oh, no, haematology is really busy. You know, it's really good. So get into that. So I got into there and just loved it. So haematology is sort of the main kind of, I don't know, illnesses you look at, of leukemia, lymphoma,
And
multiple
yeah, for people
myeloma,
who aren't like, so it's all the blood disorders.
all the blood
Is
disorders.
this?
Yeah, yeah, all your haemophilias and all that sort of stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
I went and yeah, just fell into that really and loved it, and sort of stayed there and became a clinical nurse specialist, and then I became the nursing unit manager of the ward, which is really what my career goal was. You know, I wanted to be a NUM, they call them, nurse unit manager. Everyone wanted to be a
Yep.
NUM.
A
So I was probably
numb.
at that time in sort of, when was that? Probably 2004, probably
Yep.
one of the youngest NUMs in the hospital,
Yes, I was gonna
which
say.
I was pretty proud of. Now, not these days, not anymore.
Yeah.
People progress very, very quickly. But yeah, it became
Indeed.
the NUM of the haematology ward. We did bone marrow transplants and stem cell transplants and things like that. So
Wow.
yeah, it was a pretty, when you reflect back on it, it's a pretty heavy thing for someone to do when you're sort of 21 to, when did I leave there? In 2007. So 21 to 30, it's a lot of pretty heavy stuff you've got to deal with, like
Yeah.
emotionally as a nurse,
Exactly.
because
Like I'm thinking intense people
yeah,
going through a
intense.
lot of emotional, and physical
Yeah,
pain and just. So how do you how
yeah.
did you really sort of cope with that? Was the magnitude of it kind of apparent to you at the time, or was it more in hindsight?
Um, I think at the time we had a really good, really, really good team around us. Like, it was a really good team of nurses, and we partied hard, but we worked hard,
Yeah.
and we just supported each other. But it was a really, I was just thought, by the time I've been to way more funerals than weddings, because we used to go to the funerals, because you'd look after those patients for
Yeah.
5 years
Yeah.
on and off.
Relationships.
It's a journey. Yeah, certainly. You got to become part of their life, really. So yeah, lots of very sad stories, lots of really bizarre kind of spiritual stuff happened, like, yeah, so I think
Yeah, tell me
I'm
some of
really,
that. Do you mind telling me some of that? Because, like, look, I used to be obsessed with like Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and like reading about like people when they're dying and how they're having all these experiences and
yeah,
stuff, and
yeah.
like and David Kessler, and like that was I don't know why, but it was just my big obsession. But like, yeah, did you what? Yeah, what was some of the
Oh,
stuff?
look, I think there was probably two stories that really resonated with me. One was, we had a man called Bruce, and he was from South Africa. Um, and he fought for a really long time, like 4 or 5 years. And he had planned to go to South Africa, back to South Africa, with friends, um, for like a big trip, a big safari trip. And
Yeah,
he was saying to his friends, "I need to show you a white rhinoceros. Like, you have to see this beast. It's beautiful." But unfortunately, he relapsed, and went for another bone marrow transplant or something. And it wasn't looking good. And his friends were saying, "Oh, do we go? Do we not go?" And he's like, "Just go. Like, you have to go. Go for me." Off they went, and I'm getting emotional just talking about it now.
yeah,
But
you're giving me
um,
chills.
the, yeah, they said they were out. Like, the friends obviously went, and Bruce had passed away while they were there. But before he passed away, they were staying in really close contact with his wife, and they were going out on these safaris, and they could never see this white rhinoceros, right? And the morning that he passed away, they didn't know that, but they said, "Let's just go for one more quick trip around and see if we can find one." And they finally saw the white rhinoceros. And then when they got back to camp, they heard that Bruce had passed away. And they said at the funeral, because we went to his funeral, they just said, "Oh, we believe that Bruce sent that for us to see." So there's all these kind of just little stories that you just think
Yeah,
if you're a real skeptic, you could say it's just coincidence. But how people how
yeah.
people sort of justify or kind of rationalize sadness and see light in things was always really beautiful.
And I think I don't personally believe in coincidence anymore. Like
No,
I think it's just too much that I've seen that I just not I don't believe in it
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. And there
Um
was another man who was a Newtown. Everyone in Newtown knew him. He owned a store there, and he was terrible. He was this chronic smoker, right? And at that time we had this, we had a ward that was kind of away for the main hospital because they were doing renovations. They didn't want all the haematology patients to sort of be mixed with other wards where they could get MRSA or get things that could make them more sick. So we were kind of right down the road on Missenden Road, and he had to go to ICU. It was septic. He was really sick. He's like, please, Emma, please, can you take me out the balcony just for one more cigarette? One, just take me for one. He was just really naughty like that. So, yeah, I'm like, you're about to go to ICU. You can't have a cigarette. And he's like, please, please just do it for me. And so you have this kind of trauma of, as a nurse, of, do I give you, your pleasure in life,
your
or do I go, no?
What needs do I meet here? Your health needs or emotional needs?
Please, Emma, please take me for a cigarette. But he passed away sadly, and he was quite delirious, I think, in the final sort of hours. But the registrar, the medical registrar that was with him, said that his last words were, "Oh, look at those white horses." And he said, "What horses?" And he said, "The white horses that are coming to take me away." And then he passed away. So you get insights into this kind of, it was pretty heavy stuff, Alexis. Like, and you look back on it, you go, oh my gosh, I was only like 23, 24, and you feel old, but you're not old.
Yeah, I know. I love that we think we are so mature at 23.
I'm going to be married by 25 max. I'm going to have 3 kids by then, and we're just starting out, really. But
I think I was like mentally 13 at 23. Definitely emotionally 13.
Yeah. So I think that kind of shaped me as a person. I think you become a lot more stress tolerant and resilient doing that kind of work. My husband always thinks that I'm like, I think he gets really annoyed with me being so chill about stressful things. And he just loses his mind sometimes about stuff. Like, the good example is like sort of going through an airport, going through the airport with 2 kids and the passports and the boarding passes, and he gets really stressed. And he's
and
like,
they keep going under the
walking
bars
around
and annoying
with
other people.
Just don't go away. But he's like, you're just walking around the airport with your head in the clouds. And I was like, no, I am thinking, I'm watching, but I'm not carrying on like a pork chop,
because in my really frame annoyed. Of reference, this is not a big deal.
Is anyone dying? No one's dying. Calm your farm. Yeah, so he said to me the other day, he said, if you were on the Titanic, you'd be sitting in the tea room having cups of tea listening to the violins play while the ship's sinking. And I was like, no, I would be calmly getting people on the lifeboats and getting them to safety. You would have jumped off the back of the boat into the propeller and be in 1,000 bits. Like, that's kind of how we roll. But yeah, he thinks I just put my head in the sand about things, but I just don't. I am like, I do get stressed, but outwardly I'm just kind of, right, what do we need to do? So I think that kind of life experience you get from those really stressful work situations that you don't even realize are stressful at the time do ground you.
Don't sweat the small stuff becomes kind of innate.
Yeah.
So from there, which you're still under 30, and you just said you got married at 25.
No, that's what I thought when I was little.
Oh, you thought that's where you'd be at 25.
Yeah, like when you're little, you think, oh, yeah, I'm going to be married with a child by the time I'm 25. But then when you're 25, you're like, no way.
Yeah, no, I thought I was going to be a rock star at 25. I ended up with a child at 25. That was not the plan. But anyway.
Yeah, but you've got your life now, like I've got young children, not young, 11 and 8.
And I've got the big gap. I've got the one I had at 24 who's 19 and the 5-year-old.
Oh, right.
Great. 2 completely different sets of needs.
Yeah. How's that going for you?
It's not my podcast, but sometimes I swear I just lie on the floor and just go, God help me. Just help me. I can't fight over putting these tights on any longer. Like, if you want to go to school,
wear what you want.
In gumboots and your underwear on your head, you know what? Knock yourself out. I just can't fight anymore. I'm old. And I realized too, like, having a 5-year-old, I'll be 56 when she's 18. I'm going to be so tired. I'm just gonna do
No, you're
whatever you
not. It'll keep
want.
you young. It'll keep you young.
Just,
Yeah.
you know,
It's not
you don't want
old
to,
anymore, I don't think.
just don't drive drunk, all right? Just stay
Yeah.
wherever you are. Just
Yeah.
do a couple of things for mum. Just, like, but anyway, okay. So what happens from there in your life?
So from there, after I became the nursing unit manager, I got pulled up into. I got offered a promotion into the executive of RPA. Started off as a sort of executive officer to the director of nursing, and then spent sort of 5 years in senior management positions, nursing positions at RPA. The main one is the operational nurse manager, which was a pretty hardcore role. That was, basically running all the nursing ops for a 900-bed hospital.
Responsibility central, like just
2,500 FTE. Yeah, so the main responsibilities of that was really overseeing just the daily running of the hospital and bed management and trying to clear people out of ED into beds. And it was when all of the media was around the 4-hour wait time in ED, giving us KPIs around only keeping people in ED for 4 hours. So it was pretty stressful.
oh.
Always had the news cameras outside RPA when we had like 10 ambulances lined up out the front. So, that was an amazing job. I loved that job.
You loved it.
Really, really loved
I would have been like stressing. And what if I'm going to have an off day and the anxiety and oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty hardcore. It was kind of, I'd leave home at about 6:30 to start work. I think we had our first meeting at 8. And then I'd sort of, just work pretty much nonstop through till sort of 5:30, 6 o'clock. And we moved to Mona Vale after my first child, so I was sort of out the door at 6 and then home at about 6:37. So long
Which is
days.
hard with kids. No, I really relate to that. And that,
Mm.
how did you kind of balance that? Because I still struggle with the guilt, if you know what I mean. Like if I'm not working enough and earning enough, then I'm worried about that. If I'm spending, the mum guilt, if I just.
Yeah. Oh, look, it was, I eventually gave that up because of the mum guilt, really. There was a lot of on call with that job as well. So the phone was constantly sort of ringing after hours about things, staffing shortages or, emergencies or bed block, so the phone would call.
They really are emergencies. Like,
it's
not that, somebody, I used to work in bathroom renovations and someone's toilet, set out would be wrong and that would be an emergency,
Yeah.
I just felt like, oh, get over it, but this is like the real stuff,
Yeah. So, how did I balance that? Well, I think, really fortunate that my husband works from home and he always has worked from home. So,
yep.
Georgie, my eldest, she went off to full-time daycare from 13 months. So I managed to get, the good thing about working in the public health system is that you get a lot of leave accrued. So I managed to get 13 months off with both babies. So I spent that first year with them at home, which I was really grateful for. But I've kind of always thought, for me, if mum's happy, then the kids are happy. And, I don't think that my kids have been severely scarred from being in full-time care from when they were 13 months old. Maybe in 10 years' time they might say, I can't believe you did that to me. But,
I'm sure they'll be in therapy for something, like we all are. But
we're going to stuff them up somehow. But
I put my youngest in from 12 months, and I was thinking to myself, it's socialization, it's friends, it's a similar routine every day. It's
and they loved it. They loved it. They didn't want to. Sometimes they didn't want to be picked up. Like, why are you here early? Can you not pick us up so early? So Rich used to drop them off at daycare because I'd be out the door, and then he'd pick them up from daycare and feed them dinner, and I'd come home and spend half an hour with them before they went to bed. And I think that's when, particularly when they're really little, it's okay, but when they get a little bit older, I just thought, these long days are just, I don't see them. It's not fair on the family for me to be sort of out the door and come home. Everyone gets excited because mum's home. Then you've got to try and calm them down, get them to bed. So I just thought, no, I've got to pull back from that a bit. So
what changes did you make at that point?
I went into aged care. I thought, I said, do you know what I want to do? I think I just want to be like a director of nursing of a little aged care facility and just chill,
Yep.
just chill. That was a very, very acute kind of impression about what aged care is like. I was very
I was about
ignorant
to ask
about.
you, did fantasy and reality clash?
They clashed big time. Like it was a real. It was a completely different way of managing people. Because I've been managing people really since 2004. So I started in aged care in 2016, and the COO actually of the company I was working for said to me, Emma, you talk to your team like you're talking to RPA people. And, RPA people are all university educated. Now you're talking to people that are, from, non-English speaking backgrounds, no degrees. They've done a 3-month training course at TAFE. You have to talk differently to these people. And I was like, so it was a big change for me to kind of not dumb down what you're saying, but you just, it's not that real career driven group of people you're managing like you would at RPA. You're managing a different cohort of people.
Different needs, yeah.
Yeah, different needs and just different, I guess different goals in life. And so it was a bit of a shock for me. And so I went into quite a small little nursing home and went, oh my gosh, it's like different, managing families as well, at RPA, you kind of, in the acute system, you have families, but it's not the same as it is in aged care. You're really caring for someone's loved one, and you are, it's their home, and you've got to kind of work around that. So, the family management and all that sort of stuff became a really big focus. So I did that for a little while, and then the company offered me to commission a new site. So I went off and commissioned a new build. And then that company just sort of got a little bit, it changed very quickly. The COO was very leadership driven, but wasn't making enough money. So they brought in a new CEO that wanted to, make it more profitable. Because it was a profitable business. And the whole culture of the place changed. So I left there and went into the company that I'm working for now, which I've been with for 4 years.
Because I'm looking at the
really
moment,
nice
that's
company.
where my mother's headed for aged care. And I'm very concerned about finding a place with the right culture. That's probably my number one priority. I'm sort of, I've been speaking to, I'll edit her name, but Ariella, and just sort of, I want to be speaking to people and get some feedback on the culture from inside these places, because from outside they can give you the sales pitch, but what's it like day to day, is, when it's your loved one.
And it's funny because now I'm starting to get a lot of phone calls from friends and family about, can you help me get mum into care? So I've sort of become this, guide, I think.
Person. What's good and what's crap, and
because of all of the compliance, with all of the Royal Commission into aged care and everything, it's been quite stressful. Lots of media, it's a very a lot of focus on aged care, and you can get non-compliances. The Age Quality and Safety Commission can come in and give a home a non-compliance. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad home. And so I always say to my friends, go in and talk to the manager, go in and talk to the nursing manager, because most of those aged care homes will have like a general manager and then a nursing manager. Take notes.
Taking notes here, so I don't have to call you up and be one of those annoying people.
And get your feeling from them. Do you think that they're sort of genuine people? Do you feel like they're caring people? Do you feel like there's a really good feel in the home? Look at the residents. Are they happy? Are they smiling? Are they doing stuff? Or are you just walking around and everyone's kind of staring at the wall? So I don't think it really matters in terms of all of that sort of compliance stuff. In my experience, so I'm in a regional quality role now, and I look after 12 homes between sort of North Sydney and Raymond Terrace, so all the way up the Central Coast and the Hunter, New England. about 1,000 residents, I think, across over those 12 sites. And yeah, there's some really good homes that get non-compliances for silly things and you work through that. And then there's some homes that are all fully compliant, but you walk in there and it doesn't feel good, like, so
Yeah.
to me, it's the feeling of the home and looking at the people that live there and see if they look happy or not.
And I think
That's
it's similar,
the
like
best
with
advice I
schools.
can
Like I
give.
know I did that for my son. I went and interviewed principals after principal, to try and
Mm,
find the right school for my son when he was struggling, and it took
mm.
17 principals who I interviewed before I found one
Yeah.
who was willing to do what I wanted, and
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think that sort of sounds similar to me.
Mm.
So Bupa. I remember you working for Bupa. Where did that
Yeah, well,
fit in?
that was the first company that I worked for. So yeah, and now I work for Opal Aged Care, which people don't really know about, but it's a pretty Bupa and Opal are very similar size. They've got about 80. I think they've both got about 80 facilities. So Opal Healthcare is quite one of the largest providers in Australia.
Yep.
And we're growing a lot. There's a lot of smaller companies that just have not coped well with COVID. They haven't coped well with all the regulatory changes. The main source of our staffing comes from overseas. And with all of the border changes and everything, we're really struggling with staff, just getting people in. And, a low employment rate's great, but at the same time, it's not so great because it's actually really hard to find people. So,
Yeah.
Opal, I think I'll be with Opal for quite some time. It's a values-driven company and it's authentic in that. And they are really much for the residents. There's a lot of change. There's a lot of change in the sector, but there's also a lot of sort of transformation within our company. But it's all for the residents. So I do really like it. Being a nurse who's had a quite sort of senior acute experience with my kind of background and CV, I guess, going into aged care, you're very highly sought after because not everyone in aged care has the background that I've got.
Yeah.
So, we get lots of offers, lots of, I think probably 3 or 4 times a week I'll get hit up on LinkedIn. Come and work for this company, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, well, yeah, that's how I got into Opal. I got headhunted and this recruiter just kept hammering me for this role. And I was like, no, I don't want to do the travel. I don't want to do that. I've really tried to keep myself down for my kids and really trying to sort of just be centered with the family. And she just kept going, just read the PD, Emma. I think you'll like it. And I read it and I actually thought, I'll go for an interview and sort of went into it. And it actually prompted my move up to Newcastle because at the time I was in Mona Vale, but I was driving up and down the N1 all the time. And then I came up here. I'm in Eleebana, which is on the Lake Macquarie, like on the shores of Lake Macquarie, about 20 minutes south of Newey. And because I'd been sort of driving up here, I was like, this place is beautiful. What am I doing in Sydney? So up we came. So we've been here for 4 years and love it up here. Really, really happy in this kind of area and in the job and feel really probably quite stable. It's nice.
How old were your kids when you moved?
Georgie was going into year 2 and Jessica was still in daycare. She still had another year of daycare before she started school.
That's probably good timing because I remember my parents moving when I was 12 and the resentment.
Yes, yeah. We thought if we're going to do it, we do it now. Well, yeah, but Georgie just slipped in really well, and she's got a lot of really nice little friends, and yeah, we managed to sort of buy and sell in the Christmas period. Like we bought in August, but we managed to sort of move in December. So she got to finish out the year and then start the year fresh, which I think makes a huge difference.
Yeah. That's really helpful. Okay. So, one thing that came up when we first discussed this and you wanted to do it with other people because of enduring friendships.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that? And
yes.
Look, I will ask permission for those people and I'm quite happy just to edit out names. So you don't need to mention names if you don't want.
Yeah,
because
no, I
I've
think they know I'm doing it, and
so
they know I'm doing, because I'm like, you should all do it. They're like, oh no,
there's the
what
bell
am I going to
curve.
talk about? Yeah,
Every idea, right, in the history of humanity, there's a bell curve of responses. So I didn't
yeah,
expect anything else. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, we wanted to do it together. I thought, well, if the only way I'm going to get these girls to do it is if we all do it together. And I thought, how hilarious would it be if the four of us were just sitting there going, like, just having our normal chat, 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 chat. And Alexis will probably be going, can you guys shut up and focus and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, look, I think
Alexis, shut up. That's a concept. Yeah.
it's and they're my sisters. We've spent our lives together. So it's Katie Norton, who's now Katie Finney, Alison Jessup, now Alison Evans,
Yep.
and Danielle Hudson, now Danielle Gibson.
Yeah.
So the four of us are enduring friendships, yeah.
That's really
And I
cool.
love them to bits, yeah.
It's so cool
We've
to
all
have
been,
friendships over such a long period of time. I really
yeah, yeah,
liked
we've,
that. Yeah, when you said that, I really.
yeah, yeah. So we've all been through everything together. We've all been each other's bridesmaids. We've all had kids around the same time. All the husbands get along well together.
How
So
lucky
yeah,
is that?
yeah,
Because that would put a spanner in the works.
yeah, it would, it would. I think it's because we're all very different but quite similar. So we probably have the same sort of, um, not the same taste in men. I don't mean that, but like if we all like each other, then you'd just guess that you'd like their husbands. I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a bit of a ride. Like we've been friends since we were 12.
I know.
Yeah,
Because 27 years is just taking us from 95, It
yeah,
goes
yeah,
back that previous 6. I mean,
yeah.
and
So
in
what's
three
that?
years, it's the
33
30th
years.
reunion.
Mm.
30 years. I don't even want to tell people that. Like, I just, I just, because I'm getting old.
I
And I
know.
think in another 27 years, like, I think it's a good time to do this because I've been thinking in another 27 years, we'll be in our 70s.
Yeah. Well, we should do it again in another 27 years.
Blows my mind.
Mm.
Yeah, I think it would be really cool. And God willing, we're all still here.
Yes.
Here and here,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's not true for everyone.
No.
So that'd be
No.
beautiful. So, like, look, is there anything that you would want to add?
No, I don't think so. I guess probably when you're talking about the friendships, um, that's something that I really instill in my daughter. Like I think that friendship is so important in life. I
Yeah.
still see other girls from Sydney girls. Danielle Jordan, Renee Reid. I still see Natasha Marshall. Still keep in contact with her. Jada. So there's still some other girls, but those four, and they get you through so many periods in life. And I just, I say to my daughter, friendship's like a garden, Georgie. You've got to water it, and you've got to look after it.
It's a relationship.
And sometimes you've got to, sometimes you've got to weed it. Like we've all been through a lot together, and I'm sure we've all pissed each other off at some point, along our friendships. And
wouldn't be a real friendship if it hadn't pissed each other off at some point, like a real relationship.
Yeah. I think that if you end your life, that's the one. I reckon that's probably going to be one of the most proud things in my life, to have that enduring friendship over that period of time.
It's like that Brené Brown thing, we are wired for connection. I really love that. I think, so what's the point of life without the relationships in your life? Like,
yeah. And tonight I'm going down to RPA. We're having a hematology reunion. One of the nurses that we worked with, he moved to Canada, and he's just back visiting family. And on Facebook, everyone's like, "Oh, that was the best team," and we've all kind of thought, we've all tried to replicate that team, and it was just one of those golden moments in life where you were surrounded by really good people, you really loved your job, you all supported each other, and everyone was being really nostalgic on Facebook. And then one of the girls just went, "Stuff it, let's just all go to the pub across the road from the hospital." So tonight we're going down to the Alfred Hotel, Missington Road in Camperdown, opposite the hospital, to relive our youth. But there again, like we don't see each other that often, but those connections and that ability to reconnect with people that meant something to you in your life, I think is really special. So I'm very excited about tonight.
A
lot of us people have moved away, so there's people coming from all over for this night, and I think it's going to be a hoot, an absolute hoot.
It's always the people that make a job. I've always found anyway. It's always the people, and when the people change, that's right. It changes the culture. It changes the day to day. It can be the same job, and suddenly it's awful. So always the people.
Yeah, and then you're out of there. So So I think I don't know. I think I don't really have any other words of wisdom.
That's what's happened for you. And look, and there's been such a range of lengths of these podcasts. Everybody's individual, and I think like my original idea of my idea, I think it's not about me. I'm trying to make it about let each person have their own story, their own length, their own what they want to share, and I think that's going to be best for everybody. I really got a lot out of talking to Emma and her level of resilience. I think I'm still working on that today. I really admire that. Thanks so much, Emma, for being a part of this series.